I am committed, I am determined, I am focused on transforming Kenya. And no amount of intimidation or name calling is going to change my course, because I have an assignment to transform Kenya. Tunaelewana jameni? Na niko na muda ya kutosha ya kunyorosha hii maneno. I have enough time mpaka ikae mzuri. Munasikia watu wananipigia makelele, lakini mimi sijali makelele. Mimi I am focused. Kwa sababu Mungu ndiye amenipatia nafasi ya kuongoza Kenya. Si ndio? Na amenipatia assignment ya kutransform this nation. Na hiyo assignment I will see it through. Mnanielewa? So wale wakunipigia makelele, sawa tu mnipigia makelele, tafadhali muelewe I have an assignment.
Najua wale watu wanaongea kwa madharau huko barabarani hawana track record yote. Mtu hajafanya kazi yote. Hata hivi akiulizwa siku ile ulikuwa kwa kiti umefanya nini hawezi sema. Mimi I can account for my time. Si mimi nimekuwa waziri wa interior wa taifa la Kenya. Si mliniona kule Lamu nikipigana na Al-Shabaab. Mimi binafsi sio kutumana. Sasa mimi mtu nimepigana na Al-Shabaab, nimepigana na bandi. Nitashindwa na watu ya siasa hapa kidogo, watu kidogo hapa, watu kidogo. Mimi ni noma si noma. Mimi ni fire si fire. Mimi ni fire si fire. Wangapi wanasema tuendelee namna hiyo, tuendelee.
Ni mkabila si mkabila. Yeye amechukua Wakenya wengine wafala. Hapa pwani kwa Mlimba, Ukambani anatuma ile mtu ya soprano. Mnajua ile inaitwa Yesa? Si mnamjua? Ile mtu ya soprano. Anaambiwa hii watu ya pwani pelekea shilingi 500 na maharagwe. Kwake anatumana vijana wanashikana 10 wanapewa matatu moja. Vijana wawili bodaboda wanapewa posho meal. Lakini Wakenya wengine wote anasema vijana pea 500 wakakunywa pombe. Pale kwetu anachukua wajumbe, anamwambia hii vijana yenu patieni 500 wakatupe mawe. Kwake anapeleka vijana jeshi, anapeleka polisi, anapeleka askari ya jela, anapeleka KWS, anapeleka KFS, anapeleka NYS. Wale wamebaki anapeleka Australia na Japan wakafanya kazi. Ni mkabila si mkabila? This is the most tribal leader ever elected since independence. Na anajifanya ukimwona kanisani pale akiiba. Hii jamani mkali. Alikuja pale kwetu tunasema mwadhani ya gosho. Si mnajua? Alikuja na Biblia pale anadanganya sisi. Watu wakiomba amefungua macho. Unasikia? Alikuwa ni kondoo ni fisi amevaa ngozi ya nini?
Welcome to Fireside, the home of politics, policy, and polity. The last week has been so eventful, and maybe before we go to the main topics for the conversation, I wish to welcome Cathy, Irungu, Meshack, and Mwangale. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, in the interest of affirmative action, Cathy, the very interesting news from Nakuru. The Nakuru governor, we have been made to believe that she went to the US to deliver. And she indicated that the reason why she couldn't deliver in Nairobi or maybe in Nakuru, never mind that about 700,000 Kenyans woke up early in the morning to exercise their voting rights, their agency. They voted in for her, maybe a good percentage. But see, she said that she fears delivering in Kenya. Maybe some workers may see her delivering. That may be an inconvenience. or maybe there are no facilities. What did you make of that conversation? Given the fact that earlier on, the Cabinet Secretary for Health, then Charity Ngilu, actually was, at some stage was admitted to the Kenyatta National Hospital, and the Makueni Governor, Kivutha Kibwana, had an operation at a facility in Makueni. But Governor Susan, with alacrity, goes to the top of Mount Kenya, Kilimanjaro, or Everest, and says she cannot deliver at a facility in a county.
I think such a statement or comment coming from a leader of Susan's caliber, first, it's actually being very insensitive to the women folk. Birth, whether it's natural birth or cesarean section, is not something you can really plan for. Most of the time, for most Kenyan mothers, it has always been an emergency. And I'm speaking as a mother. So for you to tell us that you're so advantaged, that you planned the childbirth, and not just here, but in the US, and even to remind us that you cannot afford to show your nakedness or something close to that to the people who serve other Kenyans, I think it's really insensitive, and it speaks to the people, to the kind of leaders that we have across board, and because this is really an issue that affects women, or it's a matter that relates to women more than even men, and it concerns all families because children are made by both men and women. I think Susan needs to be called to order, and I think it is really necessary that she apologizes to all of us women, because we have shown our nakedness to locals. I mean, we for some of us, we didn't have the advantage of flying to the US and other places to deliver. But then remember, I think why Susan was speaking like that is the fact that even Kenyans had come out to attack her and tell her that those are not her children, and they even said one baby looks older than the other, and all those things that were said on social media. So maybe she was also responding to Kenyans and telling them, you know what, hatutoshani bwana, something like that. I think she was actually responding to the noise and whatever had been said, which was also very insensitive. Because whether these children were test tube babies or they are actually children that were conceived and delivered by Susan, she has come out and she has actually told us that those are her children, and therefore we also need to respect that.
Meshack, could you be knowing whether or not Governor Susan Kimani has set a budget for any lady within Nakuru who doesn't want to expose her nakedness to the Nakuru healthcare workers to go to the US?
Definitely, she doesn't have, because women give birth in Nakuru every single day, I suppose. I may not have data of exact numbers, but at least we know if we go to Nakuru today, this evening, we will find women who have just given birth in different hospitals within that county. And by law, there are no such funds in Nakuru. I want to begin from the perspective that while it is the right of Governor Susan to give birth wherever she wants, but the statement is wrong when you put it in the context of who she is as the governor of Nakuru, and also the oath of office that she took to lead that county. It is now morally wrong. If we don't find the legal perspective of that statement, because I'm not a lawyer, I will leave that to Wakili here. But morally, it is not right. Yes, she has a right to give birth wherever because she can afford it. Susan doesn't come from a poor family. We both know who Kiika Kimani was. And we know she's been in the US for quite a long time. Maybe she's got much better friends in the US who keep encouraging her to come and deliver her for free. Nobody knows. But then, being the governor of Nakuru, it would have been the best opportunity to show the women of Nakuru that I am a woman like you, and I am showing you the way. I'm leading by example. We have faith in our institutions. We have faith in what we have been able to build. And if I can deliver here, it means any other woman in the county of Nakuru is safe to deliver in our hospitals. But what she has done is taking away even the little faith that could have been there in any woman around Nakuru, that we have facility that can deliver us. Finally, doctors or medics, there are few professions that are a lot standardized globally. Lawyers, doctors, you will find the laws are almost the same globally. Doctors are operating on some standard measures globally, and a few other professions. So you can't tell us that if doctors from Kenya can't see you giving birth, then there is anything unique about doctors in the US seeing you. Doctors are operating on a more standard. The only people who are different globally are politicians, because you will find the politicians of Uganda are a specific, unique guys, politicians in Kenya, specific, unique, Nigeria, America, and elsewhere. But when you go to other professions like legal profession, they go to the courts and they quote laws from across the world, meaning they are operating almost on some standard guidelines. Doctors the same and others. So maybe the Susan we saw, or the one who was giving us a statement, is the Susan the politician in Kenya. And that is why it became so unique.
Before we go to Philip Mwangale, let's go back to Cathy. Do you think women in Nakuru will be offended by that statement and punish her during the 2027 general elections?
Okay, from what we have seen in Kenyan politics, women will be angry at Susan for some time, but come the election day, things can turn out to be different. And you know why? It's because I don't know why Kenyans have this short memory. And this is something we've seen. You know, the Gen Zs come out or something happen, you know, like the young people are killed and then we forget. Something else will happen, then people will forget. There'll be a handshake. So I think even for Susan, I'm almost certain, I don't come from Nakuru myself, but I've had this across many platforms where I am as a woman leader, and women are not happy with Susan. And I would imagine that even on the ground, women in Nakuru may not be happy with their governor, but politics, as it were, they can easily forget. And you know why they will forget? They might just get a packet of unga and a packet of beans and other additions, and they will definitely forget. So you really can't say that she will lose votes because of that.
Now, Philip, Susan was out of Kenya for an extended duration of time. In fact, there were members of the civil society who said, wait a minute, where is the governor and where is the deputy governor? Is there a vacuum in office? And then at some stage you were told that she had delivered. Obviously, Kenyans have got two sides of the same coin. They say, I mean, is it actually the case that she delivered? And because you've studied law and you admitted to the bar recently, so I don't know whether that is alcoholic beverage. Do you think Kenyans have valid expectations that when you are running a county and you are in charge of the healthcare facilities, you need to live by example? Or is it the case of the animal farm? I'm going to tell you of the best facilities in Kenya, but I'm not going to use them.
Well, as to whether Kenyans have that expectation, I do not think that Kenyans have that expectation. That's an unfortunate statement to say, but that is our reality. When Susan Kika was making those statements, women were cheering. Unfortunately, they were cheering her on, meaning that they found no issue with what she was saying. The only consolation I have is that Susan Kika will not go back for a second term as governor in Nakuru. Not because I'm a prophet, but because Susan Kika is, amongst many other governors, is I think one of those leaders who are non-starters and leaders with rather stunted ideas. But when it comes to whether a governor should be in office continually from 8 to 5 every day, the argument could be made that, just like any other leave of absence, Susan Kika was out on maternity leave, and where she chose to spend that leave was entirely up to her. And Meshack has mentioned this, Cathy has also mentioned this. I'm reminded of Edgar Lungu, the late Edgar Lungu, who passed away 2 days ago, I think. He passed away in South Africa. And when Edgar Lunga passed away, him being a former president of Zambia, you would have expected that a majority of the people in Zambia would, be very heartbroken that Lungu had passed away. But they were, sneering at his death. And most of the remarks were that he had run down everything in Zambia to a point where when he needed help the most, he had to run to South Africa. And that is the case across Africa. Most of our leaders will not be treated in the very hospitals they claim to have built for the people, in the very hospitals they claim to have equipped to the best of their abilities, or to the best that money can buy. If President William Ruto today got unwell, he will not be treated here. Rigathi Gachagua, former deputy president, only went to Karen Hospital because he would not have flown to wherever in a very short period of time to convince the Senate that he had fallen ill unexpectedly. And it is an unfortunate place we find ourselves in. The fact that the leaders we elect do not trust the facilities they set up for us. They have elevated themselves too high to a point where they do not consider themselves ordinary citizens. In fact, when they address us, they call us common mwananchi. They are not mwananchi. They are a certain pedigree of mwananchi.
Actually, they refer to us as raia.
Nyinyi raia. Raia. Polisi wana refer to sisi as raia wa kawaida, wanasiasa wanatuita raia, wao si raia. And this is not just with health facilities. You move across, Cathy talked about the Gen Z protests. One of the things that was very remarkable during and after that protest was the fact that you did not have vehicles driving on the wrong side with sirens and people with faded suits sticking out of the windows,
faded
waving. Well, this is just my observation. I see.
You are treating them as rayas.
Sticking out, waving, walkie-talkies, waving people off the road. That stopped for a while, but I mean it's back. And you had that, there was a time when only the president's motorcade, the ministers, and maybe the permanent secretaries. But today, even members of parliament and MCAs will get you off the road. You go to most of these offices, ministries, walk to any ministry here in Upper Hill in town, and you have lifts for ordinary mwananchi, and then you have lifts that are reserved for VIPs. So a permanent secretary, a cabinet secretary, or whoever in that rank on file that is recognized as VIPs leaves a VIP office, steps into a VIP elevator, steps into a VIP vehicle with VIP security, and then enjoys VIP traffic management into their VIP neighborhood. How will those people ever, come to the realities of the things that Kenyans face? So unless Kenyans are willing to to see some change, we'll continue seeing this. Even the people who will replace Susan Kihika and her compatriots will still have the same fiber in them.
Well, in my view, I think it's extremely, I don't know if that's good English, it's condescending, rude and unacceptable of Governor Susan Kimani to make those statements given the public office that she holds. And also given the expectations of Chapter 6 and Article 10, looking down upon the people you lead, when they've given you responsibility to ensure that the medical facilities in Nakuru are as good as the ones in the US. Because nothing stops her from ensuring that the medical facilities in Nakuru are world class. Nothing stops her. And then this nonsense of claiming that she doesn't want people to see her nakedness when she's delivering, I mean, who does she think the so-called Raias are? So she says that the normal Kenyan woman can expose her nakedness to Tom, Dick, and Harry, and for her she comes from a special DNA and she can't do anything. And it's the same case that you've been having healthcare workers in Nakuru complaining about poor services. There's been issues around ownership of medical facilities in Nakuru. Instead of sorting them out, Now you go to the top of Mount Kenya or Kilimanjaro or Everest and say that I didn't want any healthcare worker, a medical, medical doctors who do this kind of deliveries. Cathy, you may correct if I'm wrong. They do this every single day. They don't even pay attention to the nakedness. For them, they're interested in ensuring a safe delivery. So this is the nonsense of telling us that I didn't want this medical. I mean, who is she really?
No,
can we start from the basics?
But Mokua, that whole thing don't just make sense because it takes us to the question, generally, how many people are in a place where a woman gives birth? There could just be two people, maybe a doctor and a nurse. I don't think it is a group of people like Susan wants us to believe. I've never given birth though, but I am imagining that room would only have a doctor, especially if it is not a complicated kind of.
Maybe she thought they would parade her across the hospital.
Maybe it was going to be covered live.
But why? But then the other question would be, women have gynecologists that check on them after every certain period of time. Does Susan Kihika, the governor of Nakuru, want to tell us every time she visits a gyna, she has to go to the US?
Maybe she's suggesting that there is no
or
Kenyan
she flies the doctor from the US.
Maybe she's suggesting that there is no Kenyan gynecologist who has capacity and capacity to assist her deliver.
Then she should be one. She should stop being governor, go to school, become that gynecologist that we're looking for.
She's a lawyer.
It's a very insensitive
No, we have enough lawyers. She can abandon law and actually be the doctor we are missing.
It's
because
totally
they say
unacceptable.
if you don't find a good book to read, you write one. Yeah.
No, because you are making a statement before Meshack.
Yeah, also issues of birth are really private, and even for her as a woman to come out and parade such a discussion, it's okay. You can open such a debate, amongst your peers or amongst women, but she's really opened a discussion that maybe will see us understand birth better or debate better. But what I find very, very insensitive is the fact that in Kenya up to now, we lose very many women while giving life. So, and personally, I've even lost a friend. I've lost a family member also while giving life. And it was actually at a proper hospital. So what are you telling those mothers in the village if as a woman leader, you go out and say that you decided to go and seek services elsewhere? You're also telling the women folk that they are on their own, which is really, really unfortunate. I mean, if I were Susan Kihika, I would retract.
Yeah, but because you're not going to retract.
Exactly.
But now talking about governors, when you talk about Susan Kihika, then some other governors who are doing very well come to mind. Somebody like Governor Ken Lusaka,
yes,
who actually understands the mandate is being given by the people to deliver.
It's doing very well.
Yeah, and then you can now compare Governor Lusaka, you can compare him to Governor Natembeya of the Tawe movement, who as soon as he took office, he started doing campaigns for 2027 and 2032. I don't know when Kenyans will actually start penalizing elected leaders. That when you've been sworn into office on Monday, on Tuesday, can you stick with delivering the mandate and then you start campaigning maybe 6 months to an election? Now, this takes us to
unless that is made law, because I mean that is the trend across the country and actually across all political seats. The truth is, immediately, people are elected. You elect a member of parliament, and the next day they start campaigning for the next general election. But do you know why they do that also? It's because we live in a very interesting society. I like calling it a man-eat-man society. This is what happens at the grassroots level. You elect James. You take James to parliament. The same people who were campaigning for James think that James is not going to be giving them any more money. And now they have to look for John so that John starts an early campaign against James, and they start ripping from John. So it's really, on one side, the politician will feel like they're not so sure that they're coming back, and therefore they need to be on the ground throughout. And for the voter, they need another person to challenge the person they have elected, because it's a source of some cash.
Revenue stream. Now,
it's a revenue stream, and it is something that we need to change as a nation.
Now, that takes us to a very interesting topic. Branded.
I just wanted to correct the record that you mentioned that Governor Lusaka is amongst the performing governors.
He said the best performing.
I wanted to correct that record because I come from Bungoma County. And I can tell you,
you have a first-hand experience.
Yes, that Governor Lusaka, you said he understands his mandate. He might actually understand his mandate. Whether he is carrying out his mandate or not is a different story. When you talk about healthcare, it's just until recently that casual workers in health facilities and health officers have now been paid their salary arrears for the last 7 months or so. So that, for the record, I must state that Governor Lusaka is not even amongst the performing governors, let alone the best performing governor.
Yeah. Now, going to... There's now a new brand of politics. It's branded empowerment. And the Deputy President, Professor Kithure Kindiki, has been going around town with something called empowerment. Economic empowerment. Now, being a student of applied politics, I'm convinced that an elected leader, and Meshack, you need to pay attention because this affects you, that an elected leader is supposed to teach people how to fish, not giving them fish. And it appears that Professor Kithure Kindiki is giving people fish instead of giving them capacity to fish. So when you ask him, understand people have posted the question and is not been forthright in giving an answer. That is number one. And then number two, people are questioning the source of the resources that have been given at during those empowerment meetings, and nobody can place a finger on the source of those resources. And one would expect, it's a valid expectation, that any single administration is supposed to come up with policy frameworks, or these people have studied good English, policy architecture, so that every single person in the economy can thrive. If you're a painter, you thrive. If you're a fisherman, you thrive. Mwangale, would you say that this empowerment program is what Mama Mboga bargained for?
Pablo Escobar at one point wanted to become president. And before he became president, he had too much money such that he ran those community empowerment programs. He built schools here and there, took people through school, gave money for
businesses. Are you talking about Pablo Escobar?
I'm talking about Pablo
please,
Escobar.
Okay.
Pablo Escobar. Well, there are Pablo Escobar equivalents here, but I'm referring to Pablo Escobar. And at the time he was doing that, he had a following. It was not until now the government rained in on him that those programs collapsed. But if Pablo Escobar had continued in the manner that he was, he would have become president. We have our own Escobars here. There are very many. You've asked about the source of funding, the source of the money that is now being dished out. This is public money. I had Oscar Sudi.
It's provided in the budget.
Well, corruption is budgeted for, so to that extent it is provided in the budget. I had Oscar Sudi in his empowerment program in his constituency say, hakuna pesa ya serikali ambayo imetolewa hapa. And we have gotten so low that even the monies that are stolen from public coffers, the people who are stealing this money from us do not consider this money pesa ya serikali. They feel entitled to these funds. To the extent that they will come and dish out these funds to people, but they will tell you hakuna pesa ya serikali imetumika hapa. The same statement we have had with President William Ruto in the past, saying hakuna pesa ya serikali imepotea. Even when we know, even when institutions that are mandated to watch over government expenditure have said that government lost money, according to them, government has not lost money because they're entitled to that share of taxpayers' money, which is very unfortunate. These economic empowerment programs, they're just a name. And somebody coined them and told these politicians now, for the expenditure, for the amounts of money that you're going to dish out in this season, we'll be calling them economic empowerment. If the government wanted to empower people, You would create a proper environment for business. If you wanted to empower people, you'd not be dishing out like we saw, piki-pikis, boda-bodas being given out. There are claims that even those boda-bodas did not reach the intended recipients. You have individuals, the president saying he has given 3 million shillings, 4 million shillings, 5 million shillings. Yet, as we speak today, BCG, HPV, rota vaccines for infants are not yet in this country. The government could not procure on time. They could not pay for these vaccines on time. So this is a government that is really playing with the minds of Kenyans. And I wish Kenyans would be awake to the reality that all these things we are seeing are really, there's nothing empowering about being given 500 shillings. There's nothing empowering about, because there are some claims that the boda-bodas that were given out would be collected later. Woe unto those who received those boda-bodas on camera, because they have to explain to their families why they don't have them when they were given those boda-bodas. But there's nothing that would be as sad as receiving these handouts, because that is what they are. And then 3 years down the line, you have nothing to show for leadership. We are participating in a crime. If you receive those handouts, you are participating in a crime, because these people have stolen from us. There's nothing that, the other day Dismas Baraza was in Kimilili also doing his own empowerment program. There is no business that Dismas Baraza runs, at least no known business. You know, there are those shady businesses that they run. But at least there is no legitimate business that he runs that could give him that amount of money all the other time. There is no legitimate business that Kithure Kindiki runs that entitles him to give that amount of cash. Same to Kimani Ichung'wah, all these other people. This is taxpayers' money. And when you're receiving it, you should ask for more if at all you are receiving that money, because it is your money.
That sounds like Rukiji's scripts. But Meshack, one of the major issues raised by Gen Z when they were doing the demonstrations was this issue of Harambes.
Yes.
They said issues, this matter of Harambes led to corruption. Mwangale says budgeted corruption. And for a while there was discipline.
After Gen Z.
Yeah, the traffic was sorted out. In fact, most cabinet secretaries did not even want to fly the flag because they didn't want to be identified to be in the public sector. At that stage, there were very few GK vehicles. All of them had taken private registration numbers. All of a sudden, the Harambes are back, full throttle. And one can venture and say that these empowerment programs are actually Harambes.
Yes.
As somebody who subscribes to broad-based administration, so you guys have decided to go back to default setting.
Yes. So let me now because you have placed me there, I'm not running. Yes. So one, Mokua, we need to understand the genesis of things. Number one, as a strong supporter of Raila Amolo Odinga, it is not going to be the first time, even if you decide to take some leave and forget, I will remind you, Baba has always said no to this kind of things, way, way before. He is the only man who said no to Harambes before we even went for this election, even in the other term. And he has been branded Lord of Poverty because these people are doing empowerment. Did you forget that, or you still have it?
I haven't forgotten.
Yes. So when he said no, these Harambes cannot develop a nation, he is called Lord of Poverty. Then people continue with Harambee. And the same people who are complaining now are the one calling him then the Lord of Poverty. He doesn't like giving people money. At least tuko na mwizi wetu akiiba anatupatia yeye apeani. You remember those kind of things? That is where we are. So it worked for them then. But what President William Ruto and his team are doing is what they have done before. He did this while Uhuru was telling us, mimi ninachapa kazi. I am doing the right thing. Najenga mabarabara, mashule zinajengwa and all. And William Ruto got hold of everyone, including in his backyard. This is all politics. What we are seeing is politics 101. By the time he was now going to tell those people, we have done the roads, atukuli barabara. Those were the answers. Sisi atukuli barabara. And by the time he was pleading, no, everybody had gone with the empowerment, whether it was in churches, whether it was wherever. This is just another phase. That time it was more in church. Now it is more on youth groups, women groups, and all that. So William Ruto has sat, I am sure he has sat in State House with his team and realizes that his deputy is now doing the same what he did to Uhuru. Because if he keeps quiet, by the time he is done with kujenga mabarabara and policies, the other guy shall have gone with the masses. So now he has set up his deputy.
Wait a minute. Is deputy, you mean Professor Kithure Kindiki or
Former deputy is doing the same thing. When they parted ways with Uhuru, he went to churches and they all went together in church harambes and all that. And when somebody like Baba said, Harambe cannot develop a country, oh, you are lord of poverty, kwenda huko and all that. And people bought that.
But Gigi is not doing harambes?
He did with William Ruto then. Right now, he knows whatever he is supposed to do, William Ruto amemtangulia. So he is coming back to now be sober. You know, this is what he was supposed to do. But because William Ruto amemtangulia and has all the monies, now he is coming to work as a true opposition leader, to just tell Kenyans, this is not the way you are going to grow. But apparently, he is telling us things that he didn't tell us before. The things he is busy telling us, William akienda kwao, anapeana magari na nini. He is the one who called on William and told William, watu wake wanataka mchele na nyama. So, it is not William who founded Mchele na Nyama in Mount Kenya. It is Rigiji who was the founder of that. So, to be honest with Kenyans, the truth is, everything that is happening is wrong. Whichever side it happens, it is wrong. Number one, like Mwangale has said, we have ministries. So when you are giving us vitu za maziwa na nini, what is the Ministry of Agriculture supposed to do? When you are giving us all this small trade, what is Oparanya supposed to do with SMEs under his docket and all that? But remember this one thing as I finish. As we speak now, Baba is at loggerheads with most of the members of parliament because of this. Because Baba is telling members of parliament, can you go back to parliament, work on representation, work on policy legislation, work on oversight, forget about CDF and all that. Because right now, Kenyans think it is the work of MP to empower us economically. It is the work of national government, who has the budget and everything, to do this through the policies created by members of parliament. But now members of parliament don't care about even policy, because people like Sudi will tell you, nyinyi mko na kizungu mingi, and for sure the people he leads will accept tuko na kizungu mingi, because according to them, they have not seen those quality legislations that have created enabling environment for their businesses to grow. So right now as we speak, Mokua, and you know, Baba is battling with members of parliament to just forget about anything touching money all over, because it is the issues of CDF that is spilling off to this. If you can't work, if you can do a school with CDF, you can also get some money on the sidelines, God knows how, to also bring wheelbarrows, to also bring borders and all that, and then you will be the best MP to the people you are leading. So if we could have just taken back parliamentarians to legislation oversight, sana oversight, then we leave the national government, the minister. If we are looking for empowerment trades, we need to ask Oparanya, what are you doing? The policies are already set. What are you doing in terms of empowering people through SMEs? If we are talking about people who are doing agriculture, we have Minister for Agriculture, but lo and behold, Baba has been given the name Lord of Poverty. So I think kaende hivyo.
Wow,
Wacha iende hivyo.
you are leaving us with very low energy. Cathy, there is a gentleman highly celebrated in Kenya called President Emilio Mwai Kibaki.
Yes.
When he was president for 10 years, he was accused of mismanaging politics. But when it comes to economics, he did a solid job. The parameters were pointing in the right direction. In fact, after the first 5 years, when he went for the campaigns, he got into turbulence because people said, we have not seen a politician. We have only seen an economist. But even these economists hatujai feel vizuri sana. I'm not sure whether during his time as president for 10 years, he ever conducted an arambe apart from giving a sadaka in church. And actually, I think his entire career, I don't know if they ever did a arambe, or if he did, he was under duress.
Yeah, as we were trying to look at this issue of economic empowerment programs that are being done by the government, what came to my mind throughout was actually Mwai Kibaki and how he handled the stuff. And I speak from maybe a place of advantage because I have worked with him as a director at Mwai Kibaki Institute. That was after retirement. And I can maybe, just to benefit the people who are viewing and listening to us, 1 second I can share a story. When I lost in the first contest, I met with him and he asked me, young girl, why were you running? I remember I was like 26 years old, and he couldn't understand why I was going for a woman rep seat or something like that. Maybe he thought I didn't understand politics very well. And I said, I was running so that I can help people. And he looked at me, kind of worried, full of questions, and he shook his head and said, you can't help people. And I couldn't understand because I thought, Mwai Kibaki, for heaven's sake, I've seen you help people. To me, helping meant, when I looked at Thika Road and all these other things that he did for Kenyans, I thought he was helping. But he told me, the only thing you can do for people is actually to create a conducive environment for them to help themselves, like for self-help. And, I would like to tie your question to what we were just debating here, the four of us, about the economic empowerment initiatives by government. I honestly do not think that those things are sustainable, whatever they are doing. I mean, it is exactly what we do, and I speak this from a political point, and what we do during campaigns. It is similar to what we do 24 hours to the voting day, where voters are given either money, or they are given unga, or they're given those kind of things just to vote for the candidates who has given those stuff. And the sustainability of that is zero, unless they are going to do this day in, day out. Because you give me a mkebe of mbosho, like it's being done in Central.
What's mbosho?
Mbosho is beans. Those roskokos and mutamanias and all that. And I'll just eat that either 1 or 2 days, and then the next day I don't have anything to feed on. But the question I've been asking myself is, at what point did we reach that low? And especially as the people of Mount Kenya, for me, I'm really concerned, because I know there's something that was being compared online, and this is the Oscar Sudi event vis-a-vis what has been taking place in Mount Kenya.
Alice Nganga today.
Yeah, Alice Nganga's today was really good because I followed it. It was very close to what Oscar Sudi did in Eldoret. I compared. I was just in fact, I'm comparing it to what other members of parliament like Betty, my member of parliament from Madeira, Wamombi, and other many members of parliament, including the ones who come from Kiambu. All what was happening at that point was, maharagwe and mchele.
So that's
I think the
fish.
noise, but there's some noise that happened between Friday and Saturday. And that noise has actually maybe materialized, in terms of the quantity and the quality of goods that were taken to Mount Kenya today in Thika. If you think about, the Kapseret event and what was happening earlier, especially in Murang'a, there's no comparison. There's no comparison. You can give one person a portion meal on this side and a boda and a van, and then the other one you're just giving them mahindi, maharagwe, and mchele.
Maybe this one needs mahindi and maharagwe.
No, I don't.
And has a portion meal.
I don't think so.
Wanna listen to the ground.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so. But then, as my friend here is saying, the issue of mchele for us, I think, actually came with Rigathi Gachagua, because one time at State House, at State Road, Sagana, he stood there and said, hawa ukiwapatia mchele na nyama na soda wako sawa. So I think that he's the one who sold us that chip. He's the one who sold us that chip.
But he listened to the ground because he's a man who listens.
He's the one who sold Kikuyus that chip.
But why would you want to give somebody a posho meal, and if all they need is to cure their food insecurity in that instance?
I honestly don't think our people are that food secure, because if you look at even the people who've been given those boshos and moshere, unless they are collecting to go and sell, they don't look hungry. Yeah. They actually don't look hungry, unless there's another business that they're running with that. But then, when you think about this whole affair politically, I think there's something that the government of the day was trying to address, either to increase the popularity, especially in Mount Kenya region, or just to ensure that they are close to the people and they are seen, they are heard, something like that. Because the noise that has come with that is a lot. If you go back to when the president visited Mount Kenya, and immediately he left Mount Kenya, then the members of parliament and all his ministers, they have been going around and dishing stuff to Mount Kenya. And remember, of course, what had been said by the people in the opposition. They had said, if the president dares step in Mount Kenya, he will be chased away. So maybe there's that fear, maybe there's that attempt to ensure that he's seen, he's heard. Whether that is giving results, time will tell.
Now, a few days ago before Mwangale comes in, Deputy President Kithure Kindiki was in Nyeri, and according to media reports, some people made a noise.
That was in Othaya.
That was in Othaya.
Yeah.
Yeah, so where did people make a noise?
Okay. They were not actually making noise to the deputy president, or they were not responding to the deputy president. It is only that whatever altercation, there was an exchange between the member of parliament and some guys who were seated at the front. When he tried to mention the name of the former deputy president and dragging him into the discussions of that Mount Kenya people elect fools, or they took fools to parliament. And he asked, do I look like a fool? And someone tried to respond to that, and there was an exchange, and as it escalated, the people picked it up and they started saying one term. And this one term thing, just like the other one that was it's really brand new, the cousins narrative, there's something. I mean, you can't really say that they don't have an impact on the ground. And I think for me, Dismas, what I said earlier still holds, that the people who impeached the deputy president, and I supported the impeachment of the deputy president myself, seem to have had a plan on how to get him out of office, but perhaps didn't have a plan on how to handle him post-impeachment, because this guy has caused problems.
Well, I understand that during the last campaigns, the former Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, was very active in the campaigning for everybody, all elected positions in Mount Kenya. Then a few days later, he says that people in Mount Kenya elected fools, and yet he's the one who campaigned for them. Is there any contradiction?
Yes, a huge one. All the members, in fact, I will start from 2017, and I will say this without fear of contradiction, that it is actually William Samoei Ruto who made Gachagua member of parliament for Madeira. And I say that because I saw him in Madeira on the eve of the nomination day, and even during the general election. So he really wanted his former deputy president to be member of parliament. Maybe he had a plan. And I think that is one of the things I admire about William Ruto. Then after that, when Rigathi Gachagua became the appointed, running mate to William Samoei Ruto, he had picked most, if not all, members of parliament from my region. And especially a place like Nyeri, he had picked everybody. Everybody, whether you are an MCA or an MP, to a very large extent. There was even places like Madeira where people inherited the office, and the office bearers, like the CDF office, as it were, it is as Rigathi Gachagua left it, and so many other things. So really, you can't come back and tell us that the people elected fools. The fools, if they are fools or if they are foolish, they were actually pushed down the throats of the people of Mount Kenya, as it is going to happen again, because it's just about to be unraveled. I mean, it's going to happen again because he is handpicking, he is blessing, he is proposing, he is seconding, and that is what he's doing everywhere. I mean, I listened to him, I think it's today or yesterday, when he asked the people of Makueni, is it Makueni? And he told them, Mutuse one term. This one term. So I think maybe for Mutuse it's payback time. So that's wrong. It's not true. It's unfounded.
I think Dismas, in as much as I don't see it as a contradiction. I think it's an admission of Rigathi Gachagua's mental disposition. As Cathy is saying, if he had picked people to take up these positions, if now he has discovered that they are fools, I mean, that tells us something about him as a person. But that said, there's something you mentioned about Kithure Kindiki and him being in Nyeri and being involved in this economic empowerment programs, handouts really. I have seen over the last couple of weeks a lot of hand-holding by Farouk Kibet. Everywhere Kithure Kindiki has gone, Farouk Kibet is at hand, to give directions. It is as though there are some instructions from some quarters that Kithure Kindiki has, needs the hand-holding. I do not know why President William Ruto thinks that Kithure Kindiki ought to be, ought to have his hand held by Farouk Kibet, or that he cannot stand on his own. We have seen some unofficial clips in certain meetings where he's receiving directions, clear directions from Farouk Kibet. It appears we have another deputy president. And the one, the de facto deputy president is Farouk Kibet, because even in the meetings that Kithure Kindiki is the guest of honor and highlights those events, it is one individual who directs those events. For me, unless William Ruto has a different plan of staying in office, I do not see how that kind of interference by one individual who commands his confidence will have, I don't know what impact that will have on his presidency, because it appears this one individual continues to clash with even cabinet secretaries. There was a time Joho, I think in Kisumu, gave a story about him appearing in a meeting with a hat, and one individual told him he cannot appear before the president with a hat, told him to remove the hat. And you could tell that the only individual who could tell a cabinet secretary not to appear before the president with a hat is Farouk Kibet. Over time, we have seen, well, I'm not turning the topic to Farouk Kibet, but over time, we have seen him now come out brazenly as a politician. He has been in Malava almost every week, campaigning for what I do not know, even though I think he has relations on that end. But people are not watching him as a person. I think people need to watch him more and what he has planned for his political future. Because the kind of brazen nature we are seeing from Farouk Kibet is, it is not a mistake. It's not a coincidence.
Yeah, as we talk about 2027 and coincidences, Meshack, Mr. Rigathi Gachagua, whoever who took the decision to send him home, there's a very high probability that if it's an individual, he's regretting. If it's a group, they're regretting. Because as a student of, I understand he did political science and literature, and as a former provincial administrator, he's been trained to address audiences and in good part manipulate them. So he came with the one-term message or one-term movement, and then he's come up with this yesterday called Cousins. Do you think that Rigathi Gachagua may actually make President Ruto a one-term president?
I don't think Rigathi has what it takes to make Ruto a one-term president. it is Ruto himself who would make himself a one-term president if he wants to be one-term. Rigathi doesn't have to make him one-term. I'm speaking from the point of view that I have been a Raila Odinga supporter, and I know that what it takes to make a president one-term, sometimes it is not what everybody believes. There is what it is, and then there is what it should be. So what it should be, yes, Rigathi can actually put a lot of fire around there. But what it is, he's far away from where those decisions are made. And I think Kenyans know. We are just people who are in denial. Yeah, we are talking about elections.
I see you circling around it, but you're not.
Yeah, I am talking about elections because we know we've been in elections since 2007, and there have been a time when you all think this is it, then it happens. That is what it should be, but then what it is happens. So Rigathi might just succeed on one end, turning the larger vote of Mount Kenya against William Ruto. But as to whether that is enough to make William Ruto one term, I am not too convinced.
Yeah, you've indicated that you've been with Mr. Raila Odinga for a while, but again, we understand that it's the same Mr. Raila Odinga who doesn't have capacity and competence to get a team of agents across the nation and pay them.
Why do you think? I have had that conversation a lot, and I think it is really, really lame. Because if it is agents who will make one president, then we don't need IEBC. We just need agents. Where are IEBC at that time? What do you think IEBC does when I am vying as a member of parliament and the IEBC have recruited their team, and this is a tallying center, and IEBC says you are the presiding officer? What do you think happens?
Okay, let's go to the basics.
That is the basics. There's no other basics.
I want us to now to buttress the basics.
Yeah.
What is the role of agents in a political process, a presidential election? Let's be very specific.
I think in law there are no agents. In law, the role of agents is very, very minimal. It's more like witnessing. Yeah, but the IEBC presiding officer, deputy presiding officer, and all that is supposed to give the country elections.
Okay, so that we don't spend a lot of time.
With or without agents.
We'll get the benefit of
but
the law.
But if we don't have the IEBC presiding officer, deputy presiding officer, and all that, but agents are there, even a million, the election did not happen.
So
that is why I think it is lame for people to keep telling us about agents, because this is what again makes election impossible for poor people.
Okay. No. Before you come in, just a moment. Let's place the fact that you didn't have agents in the lame matrix for now. Then we address the second issue: voter turnout. In your strongholds.
Voter turnout is another hogwash. I will give you the data here. It is another. We create narrative to fit what we want. The data is here with me that says in 2022, for example, no single Mount Kenya region county had a better turnout than any one county from Luo Nation, for example.
Why are you using Mount Kenya as a reference?
Because that is where the conversation has always been. You don't
but here the conversation
you don't have turnout. Baba's people don't have turnout. That is where the conversation
the conversation here,
but the data as it is today in Kenya for 2022 does not say that.
But the conversation here,
another thing.
No, the conversation here at the fireside is not using Mount Kenya as a yardstick. What was the average voter turnout in his strongholds?
In his strongholds. Yeah. It is just like the other turnouts because we have it here. It is just like the turnout from everywhere.
No, give the statistics.
Yeah,
give the statistics.
Yeah, that's
90%. Perhaps
it was the highest.
No, I am not saying it was the highest, but I'm saying because the conversation has always been his strongholds don't have turnout. But when you go to the data, you realize these strongholds have either the same turnout as the other strongholds, or sometimes even better.
Can you buttress your conversation with figures? As you look for the figures, Philip, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just going to tell you that if you place Meshack on his defense, he will not win. He has already he has already made an admission that they do not have agents. But that is irrelevant
and not material.
Not material. He has also said that this turnout thing is hogwash. It should not be depended upon to determine.
This is the data of 2022.
Election.
Tell me
election
how
outcomes.
different Baba's strongholds are from the other strongholds. Because it is some lie that I've been told so many times until many people have believed it.
Wait for Philip to prosecute his
Yes,
case.
no, I was just making that clarification. But even aside from why Raila Odinga did not win the elections, there's something that Meshack has mentioned, the IEBC, and where the IEBC stands vis-a-vis the elections. We have a selection, not a selection panel, we have nominated IEBC commissioners who were approved by Parliament. There is a pending case in court, which again will stall the IEBC for quite a bit. But one of the things that Kenyans also need to be attentive to is the IEBC. Because most of the time we have let members of parliament and politicians, carry narratives around the IEBC. Kalonzo Musyoka has been speaking against, the selection panel, the nominated commissioners, yet he was involved. And people from Kalonzo's backyard seem to believe that Kalonzo should have been involved in whoever was nominated. And these politicians have led us to believe that we cannot have an IEBC without them. We can't have an IEBC without them, by the way, with the exception of Parliament approving nominated commissioners. But one of the things that Kenyans ought to be attentive to, and back to the issue of agents at polling stations, Kenyans need to own their polling stations. We are not just speaking about protecting the vote, your vote, the person you voted for, but you're protecting the integrity of a process. I think if we get to that position where Kenyans decide that they are protecting the integrity of the process, notwithstanding who will win out of that process, then we will be at a better place. We will own election results. But what we have currently, it has happened in a few elections before, you have a scenario where people only own a polling station to the extent that their candidate will win. If their candidate does not win, then kura ziliibiwa kwa hiyo polling station. I think we can get to a point where you can protect a polling station, ensure that there is no, voter bribery going on. There is no malfeasance going on. And even if your candidate does not win, you can come out and say, this person alishinda kwa haki, because we watched over the process.
That is very difficult.
It is difficult, but
it can be achieved.
I'm appealing to Kenyans.
It can be achieved.
To get to that.
Can be achieved, but we have a long way to go, because I think, first of all, let me first add something to the conversation that is ongoing. Actually, Baba had agents. I was one of his super agents at the Bomas, and I know we had agents in most places. I personally can attest that we also didn't have agents in places, many places in Mount Kenya. And that is why at some point it was said that there was serious rigging that originated from that area. Now, I think the conversation we're having here is very healthy, and I like what Wakili is saying, Mwangale, that we need to get to a point where we really manage the election properly at that level, at the level of the polling station. And I think that is what the court told us last time that is what we were told, that really the winner of an election, what the results emanating from that, the polling station should be enough to declare a winner. Sure, I think there's been questions, and that is why Raila Odinga has gone to court thrice now, on the fact that he thinks that the numbers were manipulated at some point, whether at the grassroots or even at the National Tallying Center. it is really unfortunate that up to now we still continue making some statement that can ignite animosity, lack of trust in the IEBC, even before we form it. You know, I've just listened to people who are chest thumping and saying that they are going to win liwe liwalo. And there are other people who are saying, mtatushinda aje na sisi ni serikali. And it reminds me that that is what we really believed in the year 2022 when Uhuru held Baba and said this is the man, you know, and we are all rallied, especially the people who were in Azimio behind Raila. But even His Excellency Raila himself seemed to believe that he only needed the state to win that election. So I'm looking at where we are now and looking at the people in government chest thumping and saying they can lose because they're in government. And I'm just reminded of 2022 where we also believed that we were not going to lose because we were in government. And we need to realize that we're operating from a very maybe different position. The people are woke. There's too much, even like civic education going on social media. I don't know what to call it, but information is out there and people know what is going on. Without appearing like I'm supporting this gentleman who has an Arabic tongue, who said that 2027 is likely to be a Christmas party, or to look like, oh no, we'll say that 2007 was a Christmas party if the elections are manipulated at whatever level. I think we need to be very serious about what we confess in public and the things that we are saying out there about 2027, because the ground, the way the people are speaking, the way the young people are talking, especially the Gen Zs, you know, for that matter, people are very keen on the processes and how we are going to run it between now and that time. And I think that is why there's been a lot of questions and questioning from the time we had the selection panel, and some people came out and others, I think Kalonzo made a lot of noise. And then up to now when we have an IEBC and someone went to court, and now we are pushing and we really want there to be an IEBC. Yes, it is important that we have an IEBC so that we can also have the by-election. But let's also ensure that the processes, and I will really request them that as they manage this process, they need to be accountable to us as Kenyans. Because anything short of that, I don't think Kenyans will take it, lying down. We have seen how the people are protesting every now and then. We need to be careful when debating and when talking to the public about the general election that is upcoming.
But talking about that, Cathy has reminded me. I am wondering, and if anybody is listening out there should actually tell us, why has Malala not been arrested to be questioned? I don't know whether any of you watched the clip of yesterday when they were in Mazeras or somewhere. Malala confessed and told us Ruto doesn't know how to steal election. It is the people who stole election for him are all here. Why has he not been arrested to actually tell us the details?
That's so careless.
I didn't hear that, but
you didn't.
I
Play it, you will see it. It is there.
But I mean, if he did say that, if he was arrested, he will claim he has been arrested because he supports Rigathi Gachagua. He's a thespian to the letter. But one of the things, speaking about Rigathi Gachagua, I am usually hesitant to speak about Rigathi Gachagua because I do not think a person of sound mind as myself and as we are should, we should be dwelling on Rigathi Gachagua, even though he's dominating political speak at present. Because, I mean, he has no moral standing to speak about the things he speaks. When he's talking about theft in government, one of the things that they quarreled about, just like Ruto quarreled with Uhuru about, was who was entitled to the loot more than the other. There are those who felt that Rigathi Gachagua should have, gotten little tiny bits of the loot as they went along, waiting for his turn. When he's speaking about bad leadership, I mean, he's the epitome of that bad leadership. So when it comes to Rigathi Gachagua and his place in 2027, just like in 2022, when William Ruto trusted him to be full-mouthed enough to spread the yellow fever in Mount Kenya, right now, the only thing that Rigathi Gachagua can do for the opposition as we know it is, again, to be full-mouthed enough to keep William Ruto and his brigade on their toes. But again, I do not think that Kalonzo Musyoka, Eugene Wamalwa, and the others 100% comfortable being in the presence of Rigathi Gachagua as he speaks in the manner he speaks. Even though he has given them some mileage. Kalonzo Musyoka and Eugene Wamalwa will not have gone to these rallies that have been organized by Rigathi Gachagua. They do not have that muscle. Thanks to Rigathi Gachagua, they can now move and pull some crowds along the way. But their union may be short-lived. Because Rigathi Gachagua is very corrosive in nature, not just in his words, but in his character and behavior. That union is not going to last up to 2027.
Now we've got unsettled business with Meshack. Would you please give us the turnout for some of Raila's strongholds, which include but not limited to Kilifi, Kwale, and Mombasa?
They are here. You have seen all of them.
There are 44, 45 that are at the bottom.
There?
So,
okay, the bottom.
I'm glad that you produced statistics.
The bottom is 44%.
Which county is that?
That is Mombasa.
And
you
Kwale?
know what happened to Mombasa and Kakamega in that election.
And Kwale?
That can tell you why it had to come.
And Kwale?
Because every by-election has been there. Mombasa and Kakamega was more like by-election because it happened almost a week.
Okay, forget Mombasa for a while. Go to Kwale and Kilifi.
Yes, Kwale, not Kwale. Kilifi is 49.
Okay.
Kwale is 55.
Okay.
And then Nairobi is 56.
Okay, that was the conversation. Now, Cathy, how do you compare or contrast Dr. Fred Matiang'i and Rigathi Gachagua? Because Mwangale has said that anytime Rigathi Gachagua opens his mouth, actually in the last few days, if you're watching news in the company of sound people, sane people, then at that stage is when you want to go and make a cup of coffee.
Okay, you see, and I think we had that conversation here some time back, and I think Dismas was not here. You see, these gentlemen and one lady who came together to form the opposition, and they have been operating or moving together to whatever direction, but most of the time to Amunyoro, either to seek blessings or I don't know what they were doing there. Clearly, they have got nothing, totally nothing in common. Of course, they say that politics is a game of interest, and therefore perhaps people don't need to look at what they have in common. But then when you think about their nature and how they carry themselves and the way they even their leadership and what they have demonstrated to Kenyans as being their style of leadership, there's nothing to compare between the two gentlemen. I think to me, Rigathi Gachagua is not ready for Matiang'i, and that is something I had expressed earlier. You can tell that he would rather work with the Kalonzo Musyoka for whatever reasons. Some of the reason would be known to us here because Gachagua is a bully, so he would want to work with someone he can bully around. But I do not think Fred Matiang'i is the kind of a leader that you will bully around. The second thing is that Matiang'i is fairly a respected leader, and he's a performer, as we would know. I've never, unless I have forgotten, and you can remind me, I've never watched any clip where he's insulting anyone. So you can, I've never. I have never seen anything like that. In fact, the only in Kisii, yes. Or maybe because I don't understand Kisii.
But he was in Kisii.
I have never seen that. Yes. He carries himself differently, and therefore I think for me, putting these two gentlemen together, it's like pitting what against what. It's like trying to mix water and oil, and they can't mix. So it is the high time that Matiang'i, if he's serious about running, maybe he separates himself from the team, forms his own team because he seems serious about running, and see how far he can go with that, as opposed to following a team that really is not ready to accommodate him from what I see.
Now, Meshack, you speak a lot of energy when anybody mentions Raila Odinga. Do you think Raila Odinga, being the selfish politician that he is, if he establishes that there's a high chance Dr. Matiang'i can easily become the president, he will support him?
Raila Odinga has a party. It's called ODM, and it has structures from the grassroots all the way to national level. It is that party that will take the decision. The central committee of that party will take a decision whether they are going to support Matiang'i or whoever. But it is not right to say it is Raila Odinga who should wake up and decide whether to support Matiang'i or not.
Now, when you talk about political parties, is it not the case that ODM is a synonym for Raila Odinga?
Every party is like that. If there is a party with a leader who does not lead, then what is the business of having the party? Because that is what has messed up many parties, where we don't know where the line is drawn between party discipline and freedom of speech and everything. We have parties where you don't actually know what is happening.
So the ODM Central Committee, do you think it's got capacity to take a decision that is unacceptable to Mr. Raila Odinga?
As far as I know, they have taken some decisions before,
like which ones?
Including now.
Which ones?
Including now.
Which one?
Like the decision they took that we are not going to be on the street anymore for anything. Mm-hmm. That was a decision they took. And here we are. We are not going to the street, however bad the government will be.
You're saying the Central Committee took that decision?
They took that decision.
Or that Raila Odinga did not agree with?
No, I have not said Raila Odinga did not agree with.
No, I thought you were
giving an example. I am saying Raila Odinga is the leader of that party, and he's the one chairing that central committee.
No, Dismas had asked for an example of decisions that the Central Committee has taken that went against Raila Odinga's decisions.
No, that will not be a party. A party that will not be a party. I mean, where on earth have you seen that? Why do you want Raila to be the only one in his party differing with this central committee? Which other party have you seen?
I think Raila Odinga has been blamed in several quarters as being a bit dictatorial or something like that, or running the party as a personal property for that matter. But I think we also need to give it to Raila. He has also given this country some of the best leaders. If you compare the leaders we get from Nyanza region with the leaders who come from Mount Kenya region, for example.
He has single-handedly given Kenyans.
I mean, I don't know the method that is used there. Maybe
but I would think those leaders come. It is.
If you
Nyanza,
look and by the way, Wakili, if you look at even the women leaders that come from ODM, the likes of Millie Mabona, the likes of Gladys Wanga, and he has actually given rise to a number of women, even from other regions, like in Arisho, Shebesh, and others.
The pool in Luo Nyanza might be better than elsewhere.
Yeah.
Not that Raila Odinga handpicked the best. So
basically, we are giving the credit to the party.
When it is positive, it should go away from Raila.
No, I'm not
when it is negative, it is supposed to be squarely Raila. That is what I know.
The ODM party has given rise to very good leaders.
When one is performing, that should be so many people have a hand in that. It is not Raila. But when it is wrong, then it is supposed to be square.
Remember that
one I have seen not just with you, many people.
I don't know why you think I am anti-Raila.
I am not thinking. If you're speaking like a duck and you are quaking like a duck, you are a duck.
I will still insist that the pool that comes, and this is a positive to Luo Nyanza. The pool that of leaders from Luo Nyanza is much better than even in Western Kenya, where I come from. It's a fact. So it is not that whether he has unpicked them because he commands the party is a totally different scenario.
But if he has unpicked, then it means that there is no democracy.
Which I differ with.
And if he has also,
handpicking.
And let me tell you something else. We just discussed about the handpicking that happened in my region in the year 2022. And even if he has handpicked, but ensured that he handpicked the best from the pool of leaders from that region, so be it. I mean, it is better to handpick for a community or even for the nation the best amongst equal than for you to go to a region and handpick the worst amongst us and give us that.
But
as
Dismas, it will depend. It will depend on what. Maybe it is just authority in grammar. What is handpicking? Because these people didn't go unopposed in the general election. So what are you calling handpicking? Yeah.
What we are calling handpicking is the fact that nomination certificates appear to be given to certain individuals.
And that is allowed within the party policy. Then
so the party allows handpicking.
Yeah, no, every party have got their constitution on how they do their nomination, and it is deposited by the Register of Political Parties. And I can assure you, in ODM, there is nomination by the people, and in a situation where the timelines are difficult to meet and the party needs to fill a candidate,
which is always
they are allowed.
Which is always in ODM.
It is not always.
Okay.
It is not always. That is what people like you
and people.
Yes, will view it. But one thing I told you last time, and I will repeat. Can you join a political party and show us?
I'm in a political
show
party.
us how convenient it will be for you to run a nomination in 290 constituencies without what you call quote unquote handpicking. Show us, and I will decamp and come to that part. But you cannot come all the times and show us how it is not without telling us.
Dismas, I'm not in a position actually to tell you how it is not. Mine is just observation, and the observation.
But how the hell is this observation always on the same side of the story?
ODM doesn't listen to observations.
Well, it appears so, but what I'm saying, Meshack, is this, that from observation, and you may see as ODM being attacked all the time, but again, it's a testament that ODM is one of the biggest parties in this country. So when you talk about observing political parties, we must observe who are at the forefront. ODM is not just the only political party that does not have democracy within its structures. You have other parties, and I have maintained, again, Dismas, I find myself at a weak position because I do not think, and I've mentioned this before, I do not think that we actually have political parties in the proper sense.
Can we start by you declaring your political party?
My political party.
So that Meshack can get some ground for attack.
My political party, my registered political party is Safina Party. That is my registered political party. So when I talk about political parties, I'm even indicting the political party I belong to. So it's not just calling out ODM. ODM is unfortunate that it receives the flack it receives because it has too many members across this country. It has very many vocal politicians. It is a party that has been in existence
for 20 years.
For a very long time.
And
yes. So it is only fair that when we are observing, we must also observe ODM. ODM should be happy that there are leaders even on the other end.
Yeah, so now we should also start observing Safina.
Use the ODM party to benchmark.
Yes. And also, since you are funded by taxpayer, and you probably receive the lion's share of Mura's resources, it's only fair that we look at it critically, especially the handpicking, which is allowed by the constitution, but rather by the party laws. But it's not always the case that everything that is allowed by law is the right thing. Yeah. I mean, you may decide that you're going to be engaging in mischief. It's legal, but we are looking at it from a moral perspective. And you shouldn't get nervous when Wakili talks about the political
party. There is no nervous.
It's only a good tree which attracts all this attention. As we come to the end of the show, ladies first, Cathy, will you go with your controversial opinion?
Okay, one is.
But I think before you speak,
one is controversial but in-house.
Yeah. Okay. Before you speak, I think maybe ODM or Mr. Relo Odinga should consider this gentleman for a role as a spokesman because amejituma sana. He wants to declare some people jobless.
So one is an in-house controversial statement. The last time I appeared on the show, it was on Mother's Day, and 3 gentlemen sat with me, and none of you wished me a happy Mother's Day.
They didn't go to Yala.
That's one. Number 2.
I'm lucky I was not there.
So the controversial statement of the day, I think, when you look at our politics, politics, we seem to actually degenerate to something not very interesting. Post 2022, I actually thought that the country was moving towards issue-based politics, and the reason is the fact that William Ruto and his troops had managed to tell us that they're about the economy or they're about putting money in the pocket of common mwananchi. I believe that William Ruto was not voted for by a majority Kalenjin people where he comes from, but maybe across the country because people believed that he represented better. Now, moving forward to 2027, what I see is not something very beautiful to look at as a young person, as a mother of 3 young children who are going to grow up in this country because they have got nowhere else to go to. We are going back to politics of tribe. We are going back to politics of region, where we are even forcing ourselves to form parties along, especially, in some regions, we are going to have parties from maybe several parties. Each county is going to have a political party. And it is regrettable, it is unfortunate, because even going by our constitution, even political parties act, we are not supposed to form parties, across or along those lines. Whether it is tribe or whether it is relatives, as we are calling each other cousin lately, it is really unfortunate, and I never thought in my lifetime that I would see us go back to where we were coming from. And now the question that I would like to ask to the young people and upcoming leaders, and the 4 of us on this bench where we sit most Sundays to discuss matters politics, I think we need to start asking ourselves, where does that leave us? Because it is actually taking us back to where we are coming from. And I thought with the revolution that came with the young people, the Gen Zs, we are actually getting out of that cocoon, but we seem to be going back there.
Well, there's positive feedback for Meshack. Meshack, a lady by the name Mwai Mwaniki, says you are a loyal general and you deserve to be handpicked. What is your controversial opinion?
My controversial opinion will be on the empowerment. I know the empowerment has reached my place finally. I have seen 2 Harambes in Luo Nation, especially in my constituency where I come from.
Which constituency?
Awendo, in the rural. Much as people would be happy and everybody will say, finally tumefikiwa, that's great. But I think the most controversial opinion here is supposed to go to KRA. Can KRA just go and give us the taxpayers, the best taxpayers in this country, both corporates and individuals? Because if you have 145 for one day and 45 is your donation, it means you're doing a serious business. Dismas, a business that gives me profit, and that profit I can take a portion which is amounting to 45 million. That is a serious business that KRA must tell us. This is because we know this country is supposed to be run by taxpayers, and those taxes are supposed to come either from corporates, businesses we're doing, or salaries that we are earning at work. We already know a member of parliament earns this, and even if we accumulate 5 years' salary, we'll still not give you that a margin of 45 million that you can donate at once. You're getting me? So the controversial opinion is we forget about salaries. It is not there. It cannot give you, even if you were to make me a member of parliament today, I can't get from my salary 45 million to donate at one go. So we can only remain with the option of business. So tell us what business you're doing, and KRA should come out and tell us. This is, if it is Safaricom, we know Safaricom usually declares we have made 18 billion half a year or for this financial year. So if we have made that, we know that the much that will go for taxes and whatever profit they have. So if they donate, we can be comfortable and say they made this much and they have donated this much. Thank you for a good heart. But before we go to the good hearts of leaders, we need to know how parliamentarians, the businesses parliamentarians are running, that is able to give them that amount that will cumulatively make them donate at one particular point. If Alice Nganga was today in Thika and donated all that, we need to know. If they are running NGOs which have got fundings, we also need to know. We are not saying it is only business, but we need to actually know where these monies are coming from.
Philip,
Yeah, my controversial.
Thanks for disclosing your interest in Safina.
My controversial opinion is or surrounds the death of one young man in Central Police Station custody, Albert Ojwang. Albert Ojwang was arrested in Migori, transported to Nairobi Central Police Station, and the police report that he allegedly hit his head against the wall by himself, and thereafter succumbed to those injuries. A script that we have seen in the past. And I think it is now time. I saw the other day the echelons of the National Police Service holding a conference of a meeting of its commanders, and they were breathing fire on corruption and commanders and police officers who give a bad name to the service. It is time, if the Inspector General of Police feels that he wants the National Police Service to carry a good name, then the OCS from Migori, who should have booked in Albert Ojwang because he was arrested in Migori, should be interdicted. The sub-county commander, the county commander should be interdicted. The OCS Central Police Station should be interdicted. The officers who were in charge of during that night that Albert Ojwang died in police custody should also be interdicted, because we cannot have a scenario where in the hands of the police, the people who are supposed to protect life and property, you can lose your life in that manner. And the script, as we have seen it before, has been such that anyone who has lost their lives in police custody in that manner most likely suffered or met their death in the hands of the police. This is another call to Kenyans, and just a sensitization that the law provides that if you are arrested, for example, as Albert was arrested in Migori, you cannot be transported to Nairobi without being booked at a police station in Migori. This has been happening across the country. It is something that should not be let go. We must be vigilant. If your loved one, if anyone you know has been arrested in a police station, say in Kayole, if they have been arrested around that area, the OCS Kayole police station must know that that person has been arrested. They have to be booked in that police station first before they can be transferred, and that transfer has also to be indicated in the OB at that police station. But my call is to the IG. If he meant the words that he spoke during that commander's meeting, then interdictions should commence immediately.
That has been Fireside Dome of Politics, Policy and Polity. Thanks for your time. Asante sana.